Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of correlation and regression, we will be considering the price developments, particularly for the European trading session. As we are gearing up for the US session, we will be considering the price moves so far to help us derive the inference which we can utilize to look for the opportunities to trade in these dynamic situation, dynamic markets. So if we consider the Euro USD's price movement, it has been consolidating with the upward bias. These I have added the Duncan channel 48 and 24 to get us the price range for last 4 hours and 2 hours respectively. Along with that, we have the SMA 12 and SMA 24 in place to get us the average price prevalent over last 1 hour and 2 hour respectively. Now, if we consider its charting starting from the day, the Asian trading session started with the price of Euro USD being around 1.07. From there on, it has steadily climbed upward to now reach fairly close to 1.08. And I think it is just a matter of time before we see the Euro USD touching 1.08. So that possibility is quite strong, and particularly after the start of US trading session, we are likely to see increased volatility, which might push it above 1.08 sooner than later. But of course, it is not certain. It is always uncertain, and we have only projections in hand which we can utilize to look for the opportunities. So, if we have to look for the trades here, I think adopting a buy on dip strategy is going to be quite helpful. As long as Euro USD doesn't really break below this immediate swing low of 1.076, we can be fairly confident of the continuation of this upward momentum. But then the question arises whether the euro is the best placed instrument to go long against the dollar, or if we have better choices somewhere else elsewhere. The major currencies, including the AUD, GBP, NZD, CHF, CAD, and the GPY. All these currencies have more or less appreciated against the US dollar in today's session. So we will have to figure out which one is having the best bullish momentum so that we can have higher probability as we start for the opportunities to exploit in the US session. If we look at the GBPUSD's price charting, it is almost similar. The price trajectory is not really much different in comparison to the euro. Maybe I think the volatility is on the higher side compared to the euro. It has gained more than 1 percentage point from the lower point to the higher point. For the euro, the gains are rather muted in comparison to the GBP, but the trajectory is almost similar. So, on the count of magnitude of this rise, maybe the GBP can be given a preference for the trade. So, in comparison of these two currencies, we have the GBP on a stronger footing, on a stronger ground, and that is, I think, reason enough to place it ahead of the euro. Now let's turn to the AUD and see how things are shaping up there. For the AUD, the formation is almost similar. There is not much of a difference. As I said in my introductory remark today, the dollar has depreciated uniformly against most of the major currencies. So that theme is evident here as well. Now we have to compare the AUD with the GBP to see which one is the leading. And in terms of the magnitude, the AUD's gains are also more than 1 percentage point, and of late it has strongly climbed, almost half a percentage point gains in last 1 or 2 hours. And for GBP, the gains are also similar but slightly on the lower side. So there is not much of a difference in terms of the timeline as well as in terms of the magnitude. You can go for any of these two currencies. Maybe you can prefer GBP as it is more volatile in terms of the pip value, but in the same margin you can get more AUD contracts. So that difference is also equalized if you are using similar leverage. Now let's see NZD. The NZD was almost flat for almost 4 to 5 hours, and now it has also started to climb, but it has to be placed behind the AUD and the GBP simply because it was not gaining gaining much ground earlier, and this jump which came in last half an hour is not being sustained, as is the case with AUD and the GBP. If you look at the euros price formation, it is also being able to hold these gains rather firmly. So we have to place the NZD as the last resort. Now let's invert the charting scale and consider the USDCAD, USDCHF, and USDJPY. The USD CAD has also continued to decline with the appreciation of the CAD. Now let me consider the higher point, which was at 1.346, and from there on we have seen the decline of around 70 pips for the almost 90 pips for the USD CAD, and right now the USD CAD is consolidating closer to its lowest point for the day. So I think simply looking at its magnitude of decline, I think we will have to put it behind the other major currencies, but it is going to be ahead of the NZD. Let's consider USDCHF. The USDCHF is more in line with the NZD. The consolidation is happening with the bias on the bearish side for the USDCHF. So we can expect it to also continue to decline in coming hours, but it is trading almost flat. If we look at these price formation after making low in yesterday's session, it hasn't really gone anywhere. If we look at the charting of other major currencies, there is marked increase in comparison to the prior swing high. That is not really the case with the USDCHF. So it is one of the weaker currency in a bullish formation in today's session. The USDJPY is also not really far off from these yesterday's swing low, so it is also more in tune with the formation of the USDCHF. And after this long consolidation, it has also gone on to decline from the higher point to this immediate swing low. The difference is of almost more than 1 percentage point. But if we look at this price range, it happened in 5 minutes. After that, it went sideways with this bearish bias, and of late, it has also gone on to make this fresh swing low on the lower side. So all these conditions are pointing to the continuation of this trajectory of the bearishness, and we can continue to look for the opportunities to go short in the USD JPY. But we have much more conviction in the price moves of the GBP and the AUD. So I think even if we have to bet on the weakness in the US dollar, we have these currencies, AUD and GBP, which are much more favorably placed. And if we see some signs of reversal, if we see that the dollar has declined enough for the day, and if we start to observe these consolidation for next couple of hours with not much of a decline in the US dollar, in that case, we will have the currencies like CHF and the JPY, which are going to be in a position to go for the contra trade if we see the signs as such. But right now, the momentum is against the dollar, so we will have to continue to wait on that. Now, let's turn our focus to the equity segment. For the US equities, we have this appreciation in the Dow Jones Industrial Average with the gains of more than half a percentage point. If we consider its medium term charting, in yesterday's session, it simply spent its time consolidating, and as I had said in last session, this immediate swing high was expected to act as the near-term resistance, so that proved quite correct for yesterday's session, where we saw this consolidation with the price moves being kept on the higher side, just little below these 34,250 level. And in today's session also, so far we have seen the Dow Jones Industrial Average struggling after getting close to this level. Let's consider the price formation for S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. So there is not much of a difference. All these three major equity indices have gained for today's session. Now we have to figure out which one is having the best bullish momentum. For the NASDAQ, the price formation is pointing to the possibility of a fresh swing high above its immediate swing high, and if we look at its gains, it is more than 1 percentage point from the lower point in the higher point. So that puts it ahead of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And let's consider the S&P 500. S&P 500 has also gained with its gains slightly less than 1 percentage point. So this equity index is also apparently looking much stronger in comparison to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But we have the best momentum in the NASDAQ of all the three key equity indices for the United States. And in light of that, if we have to go for any buy trade in expectation of the continuation of this momentum, the Nasdaq is the best placed instrument to take advantage of that. And if we feel that this resistance, the immediate resistance, is likely to prove too hard to cross for the US equity indices, in that scenario, the Dow is the least bullish of these three key equity indices for today's session. So we can continue to look for short selling opportunities in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So we have now much more clarity for the US equity indices. Now, as we are approaching towards the end of the session, let's take a glance on the developments in European equity markets. The DAX has appreciated a lot in today's session, particularly after the start of the European trading session. We saw the gains of more than 1 percentage point. Though some of those gains have now evaporated, it has given up some of those gains, and right now it is in a correction phase. But looking at its medium term charting with the price formation strongly in favor of the buy on dips trade, I think I would not really like to advise anything against it. Here also, the price formation is supportive of the buy trade, and since we have the breakthrough above this prior swing high, that puts it ahead of the US equity counterparts. But as the US session is going to start, we are likely to see much more volatility there in comparison to the European equity indices, and that reason is alone, I think, enough to give us the preference for the Nasdaq in comparison to the DX. Let's see how things unfolded for the FTSE 100 of the United Kingdom. It spent its day consolidating after getting towards the 7,950 level, and from there on, it hasn't really gone anywhere. Neither it is correcting nor it is increasing, and it is simply going sideways. So there is not much of a movement here either. But the price formation is, of course, quite conducive for the buy on dip trade for the FTSE 100 as well. So all these three equity indices for the US and the two European equity indices are pointing to the same, that we are likely to see the continuation of the momentum with the buy on dips is going to be a good strategy to work with. So that's all for today's session from my side. If you have any query or any idea to share, do write to me in the feedback, and I would be more than happy to take the discussion forward. On the platform, we have now new feature in place. It was recently added here, hot list. You can add it, you can enable it simply by going to this view setting, and here you get this option. And once you enable it, you will have the most happening stocks, the stocks in which there is increased volatility, the gains or decline being listed here. You can also shortlist it by using this criterion of last hour, today, last week, 3 months. So all these options are there. I hope it would and the opportunity it brings it with us for us. So thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous day ahead. See you next time around. Till then, goodbye.